Psalm 62 is the second of 4 psalms of trust that follow the laments of Psalms 51 through 60. As David comes out of those laments, he transitions into psalms now that are kind of a combination of lament and trust. They have a stronger element of trust, so that's generally where I will categorize them. We don't know the occasion for Psalm 62, but it is a real favorite when it comes to the trust psalms. It has a chorus that's repeated twice, although the second time it's slightly different. For God alone my soul waits in silence. From him comes my salvation. Other translations say, my soul finds rest. And so that idea of silence, of stillness, of rest is the accent in that first chorus. For he alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress, I shall not be greatly shaken. And you can see there the similarities with Psalm 61, where God is described as a rock that is higher than David, that he is a strong tower. And so that imagery continues of God as a rock and a fortress. David's complaint is stated in verses 3 and 4. David here feels like a man who is about to fall down, a leaning wall, a tottering fence. Perhaps this is David speaking physically. He's tired, he's old. We just can't be sure of that. But that's the metaphor that's used of a leaning wall, a tottering fence. His enemies are planning to throw him down from his high position. They're doing this through lies and deceit, through conspiracy, taking pleasure in falsehood. They bless with their mouths, but inwardly they're cursed. So they're two-faced, conspiratorial traitors that he's dealing with here. Verses 5 and 6 bring us to the second chorus, and you'll notice that it's slightly different than the first chorus in verses 1 and 2. For God alone, O my soul, wait in silence. Here David is telling himself what to do. He's telling himself to find rest in God. This is what we call self-talk, and it's important that we do this. Psalm 42 gives us an example of this as well, our first really strong example of this. But it's important for us at times to speak the truth forcefully to ourselves, to believe and accept that which we know to be true. And so David gives some self-talk here, and he repeats again this statement of confidence that God alone, God only, my rock, my salvation, my fortress, I won't be shaken. He states it again in verse 7, on God rests my salvation, my glory, my mighty rock, my refuge. Just one metaphor after another. The term glory is significant in the Hebrew thinking of honor and shame. David, perhaps in this situation of conspiracy and people working against him, his honor has been degraded, but he declares that God is his glory. Verse 8 then makes a turn to the first person plural. God is a refuge for us. And David here speaks to the people, to the community, and encourages them to trust in God at all times and to pour out your heart before him. I love that imagery of absolute openness and pouring out and gushing forth of everything that we've got. God can be trusted with every secret of our heart, so pour it out to him. He is a refuge for us. And this will transition us into some of the wisdom aspects of this psalm and some of the teaching aspects that will follow in the verses that come afterwards. Here's the wisdom in verse 9. Those of low estate are but a breath. Those of high estate are a delusion. And the balances they go up there together lighter than a breath. So what he is saying is there are some things that cannot be trusted. The first of those is your position in life, whether you are born noble as into nobility or whether you are born into poverty. High estate, low estate, they are equal. The balances go up. They're both lighter than a breath. A scale, there should be one side that goes up and one side that goes down. And the metaphor here is rather humorous. It's of a scale where both sides go up because they are both equally not worthy of trust. Because one thing is true, and that is that death is the great equalizer. And no amount of money, no amount of nobility or social status can preserve your life. They are equal. And so don't trust in your social position. Verse 10, put no trust in extortion, set no vain hopes on robbery. If riches increase, don't set your heart on them. So other things you can't trust in verse 10 would be power. That's what extortion is. It's manipulation, bribery. It is using your power, your strength over someone else. So don't trust in your power or on robbery, on stealing. Again, power over someone else. And if your riches increase, don't set your heart on them. So don't trust in money. Don't trust in your material goods. So these are three things that you cannot trust. You cannot trust your social position, your power, or your wealth. On the other hand, there are three things that you can trust. And this is stated in a poetic form here. Once God has spoken, twice have I heard this, that power belongs to God. So it's not like God said this and I heard two things, because the psalmist actually goes on to state three things that are true about God here. So this is just a poetic device, creative way of stating these things. Power belongs to God, so we can trust in God's power and not in our own power, our power of extortion. That to you, O Lord, belongs steadfast love, and you will render to a man according to his work. So we trust in God's power, God's steadfast love, and God's justice. That God is just, and he will reward each person according to what they have done. This final verse is quoted in a sense, or at least alluded to, in Romans chapter 2, verse 6, where God will repay each person according to what they have done. And so we can trust in God's justice. David is experiencing injustice. He's experiencing some conspiracy against him, trying to topple him from his high position. And rather than trusting in his position of power, his strength, or his wealth, he trusts in God, in God's power, in God's love, and in God's justice.